Namaste and welcome to all to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, and a logos means a study or science. Sathology means the science of truth, study of truth. And opposite of that is a Sanskrit word myth combined with logos. It becomes mythology. Myth means a fake lie or imagination. It will be very surprising for you to know that most of the Western academics in the USA hate to call their culture as mythology. But when it comes to India and other countries, they call it mythology. In fact, the entire native cultures of South America is referred to as mythology in the formal textbooks. Today, we have a very, very special guest who has played many, many roles, important roles in the Indian academic circles. He has held many important political posts, but his main contribution is in the world of fresh ideas and removing injustice. Like his introduction is very long, and of during the show you all can check him out. And the introduction is very long, but one of the things that he has always stood for is rights, and he fought for women's rights in India against some legislation, and that became the hallmark of his career. He has handled civil aviation, he has handled important other portfolios in various Indian governments. And today, he is the governor of the God's own country, known as Kerala. Very beautiful state. You must go there. People love to go there. And so, without delay, let us welcome Sri Arif Muhammad Khan, the governor of Kerala. Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show. And we're very honored to have you here, sir.
Thank you very much, Aditji, and especially your very gracious remarks.
So one of the things which the topics that we are discussing today is our role. Like you have been a teacher. So what can be our role in strengthening the spread of Bharatiya Sanskriti? An average American knows India more with yoga and Vrindavan and Varanasi than any other thing. Rest everything else he can find everywhere else. And Kerala is very, very famous for their boats, their festivals, especially Onam, and many other aspects, such as Kerala Ayurvedic massage is very famous here. In fact, we have a Kerala replica in Florida, where people go there, and the word Kerala means health. So without delay, let us get started with your, if you would like to say a few opening words.
Yes. Thank you very much, Aditji. I'm very happy that you have chosen the subject of Indian culture and civilization and what can be our role to promote this culture. I think if we are keen on promoting something, then the first requirement is that we try to understand the basic features, salient features, the foundational pillars of Indian culture. Our understanding also needs to be strengthened and to be clear. Things which you have referred to, that West India is recognized by Kerala is recognized by Ayurveda, health infrastructure, or Vrindavan, Mathura, meditation, yoga. These are byproducts of that culture. These are not essentially the foundational principles of that culture. The foundational principles we will have to I would say even Shrutis, they are not the foundational, they do not describe the foundational principles. They elaborate the foundational principles, the basic pillars, essential features of Indian culture. And one of the hallmark of Indian uh, thinking is that instead of defining things exactly, we try to understand things by trying to understand the lakshans, the symptoms, the features which are associated with something. And here I would like to start, and then I would like to start with a not a Puranic story, but a Vedic story. And then we'll give you, which to my understanding, there are many people who feel that way, which describe the essential features of Indian culture, which you plan to promote internationally. The story comes, the story is, through this story, the importance of the yag has been explained. What is yag? The asuras, that is the demons, and the devas, the suras, they are both children of the same father, Pirjapati. And the asuras, the demons are supposedly elder to the devas. Now they come complaining to the father that we are not treated fairly as compared to our younger brothers. So find some way out. Pirjapati smiled and said, "Oh, my children, you don't know the essence of yajna, and you don't practice it even a bit. That is the reason you are not compared favorably with the devas, suras, and you are contemptuously dismissed." Needless to say that the asuras did not agree with this assessment, and they dared Pirjapati to give any test to the two groups of brothers and see who comes out as the winner. Pirjapati agreed, and so did the devas. He made all of them sit on the floor and had a delicious meal kept in front of them. He asked them to eat, but put one condition, that they should not bend their elbows. They can't bend, the food is for them, but they can't bend their elbows. The asuras were absolutely clueless. They failed miserably. They did not know how to eat the food. If you can't bend your elbow, then how you are going to eat the food? But the devas, because they were wise, they rearranged themselves so that they faced each other, keeping a distance of an arm. Then they fed each other, of course, without bending their elbow. Then Pirjapati told the asuras in a compassionate voice, "Oh, my deprived children, this is the secret of yajna. In South, we call it yajna. North, we say yajna. Help the world without this is important. Help the world without any expectation and share your prosperity with the rest. You will in turn be helped and enriched." This is the secret. Help the world without any expectation and share your prosperity with others, You will in turn be helped and enriched. When yajna comes into action for the welfare of mankind, it is known as dan, charity, or offering. The literal meaning of the word is giving, charity, but the real import is philanthropy. While engaging in this act of giving, this again is absolute, it is not just giving which is important. While engaging in this act of giving, must not feel insecure or have the feeling that one is losing something. This demands mental and physical preparation. The training that leads to internal and external conditioning is called tapas. The term tapas is generally translated into penance or austerity, but mostly refers to a single-minded devotion or focus on work which you have undertaken. Thus, the threefold path of yajna, dan, and tapas, it leads not only to moksha, liberation from human condition of the individual, which is the ultimate goal as far as the Sanatan traditions are concerned, but it also leads to doing good to others. Swant sukhay, jagat hitai cha. Seek to drive pleasure or your enjoyment of the things is when it results in doing good to the world, to the mankind, not to any particular group of people. The universalism in Sanatan tradition is so pronounced. There is no room for parochialism.
Exactly.
There is no room for tribalism.
Yes.
And then I will give you many other sutras can also be quoted.
That's right.
But I will give you my choice of the sutras, which I think highlight or which clearly explain the foundation on which Sanatan tradition has been built upon. The first is from Ishopanishad. Isha vasse midam sarvam yat tin jaktyam jagat ten tyakten bhunji ama girdha kasse suidana.
That's right.
This whole cosmos, not Kerala, not just India, not just this earth, but this whole cosmos, today it has gone even beyond. This was the thinking power of our rishis.
Yes.
We are talking of multiverse today. It is not just one universe.
Not one universe. That's right.
Not one universe. And they are saying this. They are saying that the whole cosmos, everything included, we don't know how many universes are there. But not merely the tiny speck of the dust that we call planet. The Vedic Rishi is describing this earth as a tiny speck of dust. But the whole cosmos, billions of galaxies in the unending universe around us are all illuminated by and inhabited by the same divine power. They are actuated by the same power. And then I would like to quote a shlok from Bhagavad Gita. ईश्वर सर्वभूतानां हृदयेशे अर्जुन तिष्ठति भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि यंत्रारूढ़ा मायया. The God dwells in all beings and it is God who whatever is happening around us, if you look at this shlok closely, whatever is happening around us, it is being controlled by God. I may disagree with you. I may criticize you. I may have a very bad opinion about somebody. But if you look at this shlok, this leaves no scope for me even to feel bad about anybody. Why? Because this person himself is not responsible whatever that person or that force is doing. If it is the same controller who is controlling me, is controlling the other person, if I criticize the I as one instrument, how can I criticize the other instrument? So again, very broad-minded view. And this broad-minded view is the classic example of how this broad-mindedness has been articulated is I am nich paro veti garna lagu cheta sam udar charita nam tu vasudev kutumbakam.
That's right.
It is only the small or small-minded people who think in terms of I and thine. Those who have a broad-minded approach, they consider the whole earth as their own family. The Indian tradition repeatedly, it talks of Vishwanath, it does not talk of Bharatnath. Sarvbhutadivasi, who dwells in everybody, who does not dwell only in the believer, but dwells in the non-believer equally. Then, from Rigveda, Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti.
That's right.
The reality is one, but those who try to know, I'm using my words carefully, those who seek to know that reality describe it variously, because the viewpoint of the rishis is that no human being is capable of capturing the whole reality. The whole reality is so comprehensive and so broad that it is not possible to comprehend the whole thing. And then, while praying, invoking divine blessings, I have yet to come across a single prayer in the Sanatan tradition where blessings are being invoked only for the believers.
That's right.
No. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukbhag bhaved. Let all enjoy divine blessings. Nobody should suffer from any disease. All should live in a welfare state, and nobody is afflicted with any problems. And finally, again from Bhagavad Gita, which I think I feel is too profound and sums up in 2 lines the whole Sanatan approach. Sanatan approach means Indian culture, Indian traditions. Na jayate miryate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. अजो नित्या शाश्वतोयम पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. It is the death comes to the body. Death does not come to the soul, the self. It never dies. Having come into being once, it never ceases to be. Unborn, eternal, abiding, and primeval. It is not slain when body is slain. Now, I would like to submit that the world in which we are living, you look all the very important, profound theories and who have contributed a great deal in the advancement of human civilization. There is no doubt. But unfortunately, if you look at other civilizations, these civilizations were defined either by race or language or geography. Not so much geography. They were defined by ethnicity. They were defined by race. They were defined by language. And finally, they were defined by the religious faith of the people living in a particular region.
That's right.
When it comes to India, then Indian civilization, right from its journey, other civilizations have also risen to great heights. I'm not denying that. But they could not keep their continuity. Indian civilization is a continuous, the oldest continuous civilization.
That's right.
Then we will try to find out what has given this everlasting continuity to Indian civilization. This everlasting continuity has come because in the light of the sutras which I have quoted earlier, the Indian civilization was defined neither by ethnicity, nor by language, nor by religious faith of the people. Indian civilization was defined, you can say to some extent, that geography was a factor, but even geography was not such an important factor. The real defining point of the civilization is Atma. It is the ethnicity which binds in you and me. We are social, as human beings, we are social beings. We can cooperate with each other. And through this cooperation, we can build something which is beneficial for us. And what brings us together? Ethnicity. What brings us together is the language which we speak. What brings us together to make this joint venture? Religious faith of the people. India rejected, Sanatan tradition rejected all these. What the line on which the modern world is working since last 100, 150 years, or maybe 200 years. 1,000 years ago, our rishis envisaged this. They said you can't confine it to one ethnicity or one language or one religious faith. So how they described? They do Uttaram yas samudra se himadri chev dakshinam varsham tad bharat nam bharti yatra santati.
That's right.
In the North Himalaya, in the South Sea, the continent in between, India, the children of India are Indians.
Indians, that's right.
You can call them citizens. Then who are these Indians? Then the Rishi says, who are these Indians? Bharteshu istriya purusho nana varna purkirtite nana de varchane yukta nana karmani kurvate. They belong to different races.
Yeah.
They worship different gods. They practice different rituals and customs. So India, We have always recognized pluralism and diversity as the order of the nature,
Pretty natural to be like that.
natural
Yes.
order of the nature. So this was, and this is exactly what is happening in the modern world since last 150, 200 years. All these walls of ethnicity, language, religious faith are being, now people have realized that India has always believed that diversity, which is the scheme of nature, can be used as a source to enrich our national life
Exactly.
and can be used to create more sturdy unity among the people of a given area, rather of the whole. In fact, Indian rishis have gone even beyond that. Samudra Paryanta Prithviya Ek Raj.
That's right.
This is some kind of like UNO we have today. So they at that time envisaged that there should be some organization which can bring all people together. So basically, the point I'm making, this is our, these are the foundational principles of our Indian civilization. Indian civilization is inclusive civilization. It does not exclude anybody. But as Swami Vivekananda has pointed out, we also had our period of fall and decline. During that period, many things came. And Swami Vivekananda says that what better way can be to enhance and to acknowledge human dignity than to say, Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. You are elevating human being to the status of divine. But then he says that unfortunately we have treaded on the neck of the poor. Why it happened? It happened during the period of decline and fall. And when this period started, India was seen by the whole world as the knowledge hub, the center of the place where knowledge, education, knowledge, and wisdom is promoted. And Swami Ranganathananda says that we who were the worshippers of Ma Saraswati, we became villains of Saraswati when we denied access to knowledge to a large section of people. Fortunately, our people realized this, and since last more than 100 years, this attempt, as you are making the attempt, that how to revive that Indian, the original Indian thinking. And we must, when you say that how we can, what can be our contribution? Our contribution, the first requirement is that we must become more familiar and educated about this cultural heritage of India.
That's right.
And second is that we start practicing these values in our life. Dr. Radhakrishnan, in one of his convocation, in one of his interview, has said he was president of India. He was, even as vice president, he was chancellor of so many universities. As president, he was rector of all the universities, Central University. He said there can be the best convocation address consists of only one line. Satyam vad dharmam char. Speak truth and act right. Follow it. If just speaking is not going to serve the purpose. When we start practicing it, then the world not will see India as land of snakes and snake charmers and just yoga. Yes, yoga is a very proud legacy. But it is yoga. And what is yoga? Yoga is not physical exercise merely. Yoga is yoga karmasu kaushalam. Efficiency in action. Excellence, when you achieve excellence, then every action of yours becomes yoga. If we start practicing it, then the world will become familiar with it. And I have no doubt that even without knowing that these concepts which they have started practicing Today, since last about 100, years, Indian rishis had conceived of them 1,000 years back. If we take this knowledge to people, then I think that will be best contribution that we can make. Thank you very much. Very kind of you to have invited me and giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you and your viewers.
So I will have some questions which I already sent you. And very beautifully, you have quoted the right verses from the Vedas, which especially establish how the Vedic uh, knowledge is applicable to the entire humanity, not just to the particular people of the land. And this knowledge has been used extensively. Now, you mentioned some points like racism, which is very rampant in the Western countries, and racism and all these important concepts which are there. Slowly, these are becoming famously called the woke culture, the cancel culture in the US campuses also, American campuses also. But these are also coming into the Indian campuses. There's a huge Western influence on the Indian campuses. So there's one question is that how we can counter. The answer is also in your initial lines also. The answer is also there. You already spoke the answer also. But on a more practical level, when you say Isha Vasimidam Sarvam, and before that starts Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnasudachyate. So
Yes.
so answer is already there, which you already said. But on the practical level also, the how we can stop the Western education influence on the Indian education on a practical level. You have been a chancellor of 2 universities. I think viewers should know that. You have been the president of Aligarh Muslim University, and also you're a student from Jamia Millia University. So please tell us about that.
There are, in everyday life, we come across so many things which, according to our viewpoint, are negative. I'm not going to use very strong words, but which are negative and which we feel should not be allowed to grow. Again, the Sanatan tradition tells us how to fight the negative traditions, how to fight these negative forces. The fight against the negative forces must be conducted, but we should have no hate for those people. The activities are negative.
That's right.
But as far as these people are concerned, they are again those who pursue these negative courses. They themselves are victims of some vicious propaganda.
True. Absolutely true.
Vicious theory. So for them, have sympathy. No hatred against them. We can't have hatred, but we have a duty to fight out these forces. And how to fight out? The fight out today, you can't do it with physical force.
That's right.
Today with the advent of the modern technology and all these means of communication, you have to build up, as it has been said in the UNESCO declaration, that wars begin in the minds of men. Therefore, the defenses of peace must also be built in the mind of the people. So we must use all these avenues, all these means of communication to build positivity, to build the defenses of peace, to fight against negativity. And the world is thirsting. Why? Because as I said earlier, despite the fact that since last 100, I'm not exact, I'm just my estimate that 150 years or maybe 200 years, when all these walls of ethnicity, racism, at least officially, legally, have started collapsing. But the habits die very hard.
Very hard.
Very hard, particularly of those who have enjoyed privileges.
That's right.
Because, it becomes very difficult for them. So they become sometimes nostalgic. They try to remember the times when they were enjoying position where by entitlement they were considered superior to others.
That's right.
So now we have to be sympathetic to.
That's
This is what beautiful. I will give you an example from Sanatan tradition. Agarta Chaturo Veda
yes.
Trashta Sasharam Dhanu Idam Brahmam Idam Chhatram Shastra Dapi Shastra Dapi. You should be armed with education and knowledge fully. And then you should also have the physical force. First, try to use soft power to the best of your capacity. But ultimately, if this negativity uh, does not behave, then, but this is only after exhausting all other options. And only when you have that kind of physical power. So, Shastradapi, the first weapon is knowledge, education, knowledge, wisdom. And the physical arms, they are only second. But non-violence, it has been said, I don't remember exactly, but Mahabharata, it has been stated that when non-violence environment is created, then even the violent people, they start changing their habits.
See, Bhagavad Gita says very clearly, Satyam Priya Hitam Chayat. We should, our speech should have three qualities, and which you are a master in that. Satya,
Yes,
Priya, and Hita. It should
Hita.
be truthful, it should be dear to others, and also it should be for the benefit of others. And all,
Absolutely.
and also it should be borne by the abhyasanam, like the swadhyaya abhyasanam, which should be based on personal penances, like you said. The earlier time also you quoted a Sanskrit shloka from Bhagavad Gita, the jnana, yajna, and tapa, na tyajyam, even pavanani manishina. Like it says, even it purifies the people who are very already great thinkers.
Yes.
Those three activities you have not done. Now, the Western influence, like you said, Lagut, it is a small mindedness, and it's mine. Like if you look at so most of my students, we have a large group of students I have joined today, and most of the students, they are actually trying to go towards the Sanatan principle, which you just described, the broad mindedness and the bigger life, bigger, seeing the world in a bigger way. And I always say, and I quote you again, hate is like a dry ice. If you hold it in your hand, it's going to burn the very hand it holds, who holds it. So my next question comes to you, especially for in this one, the decolonizing the Indian mind, because the Western education systems have also come into the Indian education system, which I'm talking about, the Sanatan education system, where the body has assumed more prominence than the Atma. And when you talk in terms of body, body is finite, Atma is infinite. So when you immediately when you bring the bodily consciousness that I am, my body is more important than yours, then everything else goes down. The Sanatan principle also disappears. How do we counteract that? Through various ways, since you are an official in the Indian government. So how do we counteract that?
You know, I feel that education is the best medium. If you refer to the history, uh, then the Bible story tells us that the Pharaoh of the times of Moses, he, the Quran also gives that story. The male children were at one point of time, the official order was to kill all the male children and keep the young girls alive. So in India, there was poet Akbar Ilahabadi. Although he was a government functionary, he was a judicial magistrate, but he's a very well-known poet, and he used to write in a satirical manner, not the normal. His style of poetry was something normal poetry. It was more satirical. So he said, and I will translate it into English. He said, यूं कत्ल से बच्चों के वो बदनाम न होता, अफसोस के फिरौन को कालीज की न सूझी. He would not have been condemned so much for killing the male children if he had thought of starting his own education system to indoctrinate these children. No, this is a universal truth. There is no other way. As far as the human society, because of all the living creatures, we are the only one human beings who have been blessed with this big mind.
Big brain.
The power of imagination. It is the power of imagination which has told us that I am not this physical body of mine. मैं चैतन्य आत्मा हूं. Famous, something is coming to my mind. When the night before, Ramchandji was supposed to leave for the forest, and Lakshman lost his self-control, and he started saying things in presence of Ramchandji, things which were derogatory for the father. Then Ramchandji told him that Dahomiti ya buddhir vidya sapir kirtata naham dehaschi datme buddhi vidyate bhannete. Those one who thinks that I am this body is a victim of avidya, and one who knows that I am conscious infinite joy, atma, soul, self, he has real vidya. So, and why this? Because my physical body is different from your physical body. We are two different entities. Each one of us is a unique, different entity. But what binds us? The Sanatana tradition tells us that howsoever strange or alien a person may be, not only a person, any living being, but there is something common between the one whom I consider the other and myself, and that is Atma. And once I realize this, then I will try to see in each one myself and each one in me. And that is why I was saying that this world, which has been afflicted with these divisions and divisions in the name of religion, in the name of language, in the name of ethnicity, for almost all of its history. India, almost all of its history has pleaded, has preached to break these walls and realize that we are all bound by the thread of Atma. That is something common among all of us. If we are able to present, if we are able to articulate this position properly and present it properly to the people, I have no doubt that people will jump onto it.
The American education system, you are very right, Governor, that you have put very beautiful points, and I'm really impressed in listening to you. And one of the things which you have said, now I will go a little back. I deal with the American education system every day. And in the American education system, there is a very negative portrayal of the Sanatana traditions, very negative portrayal, because they are trying to judge Sanatan from a body point of view. Now, in the Indian education system, also, in the traditional education system, Sanatan Dharma is beautiful, which is outside the schools and colleges of India. But within the schools and colleges of India, they are still following the Max Muller's education system, where the Sanatan principle is not emphasized at all. And it is same like the American education system, where the Sanatan principle is not taught at all. And therefore, we'll see, because you and I are in complete peace. We understand what we are talking. We are talking about the Atma, and we are talking about something beyond our bodily experience. But most of the people, when they talk, because the education systems, they talk about something finite and related to the body and not Sanatan at all. So it creates a friction. So, like for example, you and I, in one of the lessons in American school, can be that you belong to this race. So you have to first check mark. You are an Asian American, you are an African American, you are a black, or you are a white, or you have to say you are a Hispanic, and you have to declare you're not a Hispanic. Now, these are the forms they have to fill in. Accordingly, you're put into the same classroom, and that happens in the USA. And Indians may not be aware of that, but I'm telling them also that this happens in the USA. Now, but in the Indian context, now when I was seeing some of the textbooks of India, the Bhagavad Gita, the Rig Veda, the Purana talk totally different level than what is being taught to our children. So when they come out and they cannot see, you have done a lot of personal study. I've I've done personal study, and whatever little I know, I've written them in books. And then we can talk big words, but the children do not, because they don't have that access. The parents are busy in working hard, trying to just make the ends meet. And for them it is a privilege to learn these things from these kind of shows that we are doing, Sathology, and many other shows like this are there. So what is your viewpoint? And I know you are very connected, in the sense, through the heart, through to the culture. So what is your inputs to make that change, if you want to answer that question?
I agree with the assessment, with your assessment of the situation. We have last, I won't say just 150 or 200 years, but much more than that. India has been under rule, I won't say totally, because some of these people, they try to develop an understanding of Indian ethos and Indian legacy, cultural, philosophical legacy, but mostly for about 1,000 years, we have been under foreign domination. And when I say foreign domination, I'm not talking of ethnicity. Certainly not. I'm not even talking of religious faith. I'm talking foreignness in the sense that these people were not aware, were not familiar with the Indian cultural ethos, India's cultural and civilizational heritage. And unfortunately, I said earlier that one of the essentials of Sanatan thinking is that for your problems, do not blame anyone else.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, it is my karma.
Yes.
Whatever goes around
Comes around. That's right.
So I am not trying to blame anybody or shift the blame. No, ultimately, we Indians were responsible.
That's right.
Why? Because, in the words of Swami Raghunathananda, because from being worshippers of education and knowledge and wisdom, we became villains. When we stopped access to education to large sections of the population. And in the process, we weakened ourselves. Because we ourselves, uh, we were responsible for weakening ourselves, others took advantage of it. Therefore, my feeling is that I attach great importance to education, right from school, but more than that, I attach importance to the family.
Correct.
The basic sanskars are given by the family. Basic understandings are given. First teacher in the life of any person is the mother, and the father, the family, those who with whom we live, and then comes the education system. Fortunately, first I should say that unfortunately, for last 150 years, the education system that we inherited from our colonial masters, we did not make many changes in that. Somehow, our I I won't I'm not using this argument politically, no.
Yes.
Somehow our self-confidence was also eroded.
Right. True. It's a colonial mindset imposed on us.
And we had lost confidence in our own things.
Own things. That's right.
We had lost confidence. Why? Because we were not full. I have seen so many times during at least last 25, 30 years, that when I make these points in a gathering, say in Delhi, in some where very uh, elite kind of people gathered for dinner or something, and when I make these points, they are surprised. They say, is this in the is this in Gita? Is this in Veda? They find it difficult to believe.
That's right. True.
And this trend is not there so much now as it was, say, about 25, 30 years back.
Big bang. Yes.
Because in Parliament, I used to frequently quote some of these verses. So newspapers had they had sort of highlighted it. So people knew about, they came to know about it. They used to ask me, and I will explain the whole thing. And they found it difficult to believe.
That's true.
So first, we have to restore our lost confidence.
Confidence. Right.
The day I started realizing that the whole world is now coming to a thinking point which our rishis had envisaged 5,000 or 6,000, or I do not know how many years back.
That's right.
It fills me with confidence. When I read in the Islamic tradition that Huzur Sallam, that is Prophet Muhammad Sahib, while sitting in his mosque, suddenly he said, Ajidu rihal ilmi min biladil Hind. I am feeling the cool breeze of knowledge coming from land of India.
Mm-hmm.
When I read the Arab historians who describe India, who describe in the first chapter itself,
that's right.
Tabri, Ibn Rushd,
as a land of knowledge.
Yeah, they say that the world has only 4 great dominions.
That's right.
Iran is known for its majesty. Yes. Rome is known for its chivalry and beauty. China is known for its craftsmanship and obedience to law. And India is known for its promotion of knowledge and wisdom. Yes. That gives me confidence. In fact, I was, this is about 15 years back. I was speaking at Deoband. And good number of people from that Darul Uloom were also present in that meeting when I was speaking. I said, as a Muslim, do I have the responsibility or not to try to know that knowledge whose impact Prophet was feeling while sitting in Medina? That gives me confidence. So the first thing is that we become familiar with it. More of self-education is needed.
Needed. See,
Most,
the Arya means a
yes,
civilized person, and the Aryabhat is
exactly.
the land between Himalaya and Vindhyachal. So if you're
Yes,
born there, it is your duty to share with the world about this culture. And it is your duty to also learn it. It's not, if the schools are not teaching you, it doesn't stop you. There's a YouTube there, there's a our Shastra are there. And when you learn it and you share with the world will be grateful with this knowledge.
Sasangi, my feeling is that Indians Sanatan tradition does not need, I mean, it does not, it's not a matter of propagation so much. It's a matter of education.
That's right.
Because the human nature is such that whatever benefits it, it grasps it. Maybe initially it may be hesitant, but then ultimately it will grab it. Why? Because it is beneficial. Now, how many people know? How many people know? The first, there was a clash of church and state in the West. Then democracy came. Along with it came secularism. India was a religious society. Here, sanction for secularism, for acceptance of diversity, acceptance of pluralism came from religion itself. I was reading and I was surprised to see that I don't exactly remember the words now because I have recently read it, where a line in the Veda says that it is the duty of the king to provide equal protection to both who believe in Vedas and who are non-believers in Vedas.
Even in the kingdom of Yudhishthir, there's a protection to all available.
Yes.
This is the rule of the thing, and also
Equal protection to the believer and the non-believer. Now, this is something the world is thirsting to hear.
here. Now, in Mahabharat war, when Yudhishthir won the whole planet, he gave equal protection to Yavana, Malecha, and also Arya. All three.
Yes.
Equal protection was given. So thank you so much. I know there is up the time and you have to go, but I would like to invite you again. And because to have some other topics, you're such a knowledgeable person, and we would like to make this feature constant here. And thank you for your staff also, because your staff did very hard work for arranging this show. And for all the viewers who are watching, you can always go to the YouTube and also hear this conversation. Approximately 7,000 students have heard you live right now in the US, and they are very indebted to you. And I'm also very thankful to you for coming, and like to make it a regular feature. Thank you so much.
Thank you very kind of you. Very kind of you. And my best wishes to you and all your viewers.
Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.